Yo, so I got a weird deck for you today. It may look like I hit my head really hard on the wall, threw some Sultai cards together, called it good, but there's a lot more synergy than it looks like at first glance. I do have a sideboard as well, which also is kind of weird. Could use a little bit of work, but I think is pretty good. Now let's actually, because in the gameplay today, I have 3 games at 250 speed that really show the deck actually doing its thing. And again, it looks weird, but just give me 1 second. So what are we actually doing here? Well, we actually have 3 Elvish Archdruids, which is sort of the... Initially I had 4, I have 1 more on the sideboard, but you have more elves than you might think at first glance here. I'll talk about all of them right now, but this can tap for a ton of mana, which will ramp us up to our bigger boys. I am trying to go faster in this intro than usual, by the way. Hopefully that's okay. Leave a comment if you need further explanation. I respond to 98% of my comments, I really do. Sometimes some slip through the cracks or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So, Overgrown Zealot, man, also a great card. The 0/4 toughness here is not to be sneezed at, and it does make a mana of any color. So this is an elf, this is an elf, that's already a good amount of ramp, and you have 2 more cornucopias, mana of any color, great for the second black or the second blue, because we do lean into green, but we have a good amount of dual lands as well, and 3 Fabled Passages. So just something to consider there. We also have 2 unscrumptious agents, and I have 2 more in the sideboard actually. This is an elf, which is fantastic. It also gets rid of stuff in their hand. They have to make a harder decision early. And it also exiles the card, which is like the best part about this, because they can't like set up a graveyard play later, and they can't put their Atraxa into the bin, right, for example. So this is really good, man. This is a great card from Karlov Manor, which is definitely slept on. So good amount of elves so far, right? Llanowar Elves too. This can tap itself as well as making your druid obviously tap for more. Not only that, right? I just want to say that this buffing your elves is kind of real when you also have like your sages. So you can have a 2/2 maybe in that case that blocks twice because you do get a flying creature, a flying insect creature half. So good earlier blocker, buying you time. You will say we don't have too much interaction, but I do want to point out, I guess right now, that we do have 2 Virtues, which is sort of a slight removal spell, gaining a little bit of life. And you have 1 Harvester of Misery, a little bit of removal going on. The only other real interaction stuff is like Phantom Interference, which you just get 1 Phantom Interference off a game, and maybe 1 Flood Maw, just enough to sort of build up your deck, or sorry, your board presence, so that you can actually cast your big creatures. It'll make a little bit more sense in a second. As far as ramp, Sky Seeker, even though it's not an elf, for 4 mana, that exhaustibility is incredible. So if you can get this off, you get 2 land cards. It doesn't fail either until you reveal 2 land cards. Very good card, man. It often trades up. It's also another flyer. You will see we have more reach and stuff going on. This is also a flying 1/1, and you do have a 3/4 reach guy here, and I'll talk about this card a little bit more because this is an all-star, absolutely great card. So, cool little Seeker card here. Now, we also, when I first built this deck, it was more of an unstoppable plan type of thing, and what I tried to do, I had more copies of Trickster here as well. This can allow you to cast any cards as though they had flash, so that when you untap your Druid with maybe Unstoppable Plan, you can cast incredible, you can get like 2 huge plays a turn cycle. That feels really good, but I ended up cutting this down to just 1. If this just untaps your Llanowar Elves like a single time, or your Druid a single time, that's already kind of getting towards the slot that it takes, but there's another deck for this that I'm going to try to build. I tried like a fairy thing, actually, but anyway, just a cute little interaction there. So yeah, this is like the main build around, good amount of elves. We also, by the way, have Kalissa, which is a first strike death touch blocker, which is incredible. They cannot swing into you until they remove this. And if they're spending their removal on this, then they're not removing your Druid, for example, or your Zealot, for example. And again, this can block against a lot of decks early, unless they're monstrous raging through it, which feels a little bad. But yeah, and you do have a lot of like incidental life gain, which we'll talk about a little bit more hopefully in a second. Not only that, we have Izoni here, which is also an elf with a little bit of life gain as well, but also a Surveil 2. So this is a lot better than it looks. To actually use the ability, you probably need like 2 sages to die. You need these insects here. We don't really have any other token stuff. Maybe the Koma tokens. This card, we know how good it is. It can't be countered, and it has Ward 4. So unless they board wipe it, This is going to create the serpents, and once you do that a single time, you're sort of winning the game in and of itself there. So cute stuff, because this is sort of a graveyard thing. As far as surveilling and graveyard stuff, we do have Glarb. We're playing the colors for it. There's also a 4 toughness creature, great blocker, more death touch. You can cast stuff off the top of your library. It's not too unrealistic to actually cast your Dreamdews. Again, I'll talk about this in a second. But the Surveilling 2 is great. You can also like Surveil 2 and then untap it with Unstoppable Plan, which is kind of cute, man. Like that actually happens more than you'd think. And again, Trickster, if you can get this down, it's also just a 4 power guy, so it can just block if you don't actually end up thinking that you're going to need to keep it around. Or maybe you're going to die, so you have to block, right? As far as life gain, we also have Debris Beetle. This is not a creature, but being that you can maybe Unstoppable Plan, untap it, and maybe use it twice a turn cycle is actually kind of cute. It also is just a 6/6 trample, which is good. You can take out Planeswalkers, they can't really block this. And if they do, you don't care too much. But yeah, the life gain stuff is kind of important, being that we are trying to ramp. And we don't have too much aggression early, so eventually we'll get to the point where our life total matters. So I promise it does matter, even though it's typically not too important. So Dreamdew Entrancer, what's incredible about this is like you get a 3/4 reach blocker, great blocker, tapping down their biggest thing, or you can target like I don't know your infestation stage token or something. Or it itself, and then draw 2 cards, which will help you get that 5th land drop. It'll help you actually get a big guy that you can cast. Sire of Death, by the way, more life gain. Trample, first strike is incredible. I have to pay 7 to get rid of this. So again, unless they're board wiping, you're doing really good in terms of like board presence. So Sire's great, Koma's great. You also have Muldrotha in here, which is more graveyard stuff. And this is a way of getting back your Virtue if that ever gets removed. And if you can sort of loop Virtue and more Muldrotha, you're starting to feel pretty good, because they do want to remove your Elves, because again, you just have so much mana to spend that it's good. We also have a couple creature lands in the sideboard, or sorry, in the list here that you can pump mana into if you have like not a better play in your hand, because you don't have like too much card draw and stuff. Izoni is the other main threat. This is a lot of power and toughness for a single cast, and the menace on all of the guys here are really, really good. More reach as well. So, and Misery, at the very least, if you do get this, can put itself into the bin. So if you get this or Glarb, you're feeling pretty good. We also have just one more card that snuck its way into the list that you might think, like, what the hell are you doing, man? But first of all, when you're Manifesting Dread, you can put one of the bigger creatures into the graveyard, because you're eventually working up to hopefully your Virtue. Or you just get one of your big creatures onto the field, and you can potentially flip it up. But typically you don't really want to do that. So you're getting a 2/2 and putting something into the bin, which is typically pretty good in this deck. So yeah, this also has cute synergy with Zealot, because you can spend 2 mana here to flip something up if Shrieker gets removed, for example. So good amount of Elves. Again, you're sort of just throwing this in front of something early as well once it's removed something from their hand, so that's good. Again, just a slight little bit of interaction. Glarb is Death Touch. This is Death Touch. So things are working good. Anything that you haven't removed or anything that's a serious problem, you're tapping down with this. And if this dies, because like you tap down their biggest thing, it's almost irrelevant for a long time, right? Then you can block something. Maybe you block up and it dies, whatever, or you throw it in front of a big trample guy, has 4 toughness. That's good. You just bring it back. Then all of a sudden you have another 3/4 blocker while you've tapped something down. Or if you really need to draw those cards, you can do that. So the modality of this and just the stat line, the reach, all of it is very relevant and very important. I love this card. I think this is fantastic. So that's kind of cute. There's like a lot of cuteness going on. And I know this deck looks a little weird. I'm not saying this is like a top tier deck, but I wanted to build something fun. I like Sultai. Sultai is probably like my favorite 3-color. As time goes on, it's becoming more and more my favorite 3-color thing. And again, I wanted to make Unstoppable Plan work a little bit more, especially with Trickster, but I don't think this is exactly the deck to take huge advantage of it, because we don't have too much like instants and sorceries. But speaking of a good sorcery here, is we do have Doppelgang. So you'd have to do this on before you untap with like Unstoppable Plan or whatever, unless you have Trickster. But if you can get, so if you're not getting your creatures and stuff, or maybe they exile your graveyard, they have ghost vacuums, whatever, you just eventually get this. This is just a win con. I mean, I love this card. I have some incredible Simic decks. I have like 2 Doppelgang videos if you want to check those out. But let's say that you copy your Dreamdews. So you're casting this for X's 2. So for 8 mana, right? You get 2 Dreamdew Entrancers. You tap down their 2 scariest things. Now you have 2 more 3/4 blockers, which is fantastic. Or maybe you use both of these to tap down a smaller guy that you've already got value out, like your Agent or your Sage's halves. And then you draw 4 cards. But typically, like, you want to tap 1 thing down, maybe draw 2 more cards, blah, blah, blah. By the way, with Unstoppable Plan, you sort of do untap your stuff a little bit quicker than typical. So there's stuff going on. And at the very least, you can untap, like, your Cornucopias and your Druids, right? So that's good. But anyway, if X is 2, you get 2 of these, but you also get 2 more of another permanent. Maybe you just target your Agent. So you're tapping down their 2 biggest things. You're getting 2 3/4s. You're also getting 2 more 1/1s. And you're getting rid of 2 of the scariest, maybe their final 2 cards in their hand, right? And again, it is exiled, so they can't, like, take advantage of graveyard stuff. Maybe you make 2 copies of Misery. -4/-4 to everything is pretty good. You will kill your stuff, typically, unless you have 2 Druids, but if you at least have 1, then your Zealot will survive, for example, so the 4 toughness is pretty relevant there. But maybe you make 2 copies of Sire of the 7 Deaths, or maybe you make 2 Sire of the 7 Deaths and 2 Virtues of Persistence, and then you're just getting, like, because again, their creatures going to the bin too, so maybe you just, I don't know if you typically do that, but there's stuff going on here. Maybe you get, no, you wouldn't get this, it's legendary rather. But Hauntwoods is putting stuff in the bin, Glarb is putting stuff in the bin, you have your Misery that can sort of do that in and of itself, and you have Surveilling with Izoni. So there's just a sprinkle of that. So as long as you either get one of these big cards in your hand, or maybe you finally get one to the bin, you can actually start winning the game pretty easily. We don't have too much card draw, so the hand you take sort of matters. Again, this isn't like perfected or anything, but it is a lot better than it might look at first glance. So as far as the sideboard, by the way, I've won like 5 out of 6 games with this deck. I don't know. I'm only in Platinum at the moment. I haven't been playing enough to really break out through Diamond and back into Mythic and stuff. But we do have some sideboard action going on. Now, 3 steps ahead can be a pretty good mana sink, something you can take advantage of with all your huge elf tapping moments, right? So this could be good. Also, just creating a copy of maybe another Archdruid or a Dreamdew Entrancer feels pretty good here. So 3 duresses for taking those Sunfalls out, because Sunfall is problematic as it is with literally every deck ever made. Snakeskin Veils, man. Even if you just have a Llanowar Elves sitting there ready to tap for just 1 green, protect something important, absolutely a blowout play. The guy gets a little bit bigger. I think 2 is probably the magic number, but I don't know. 1 more cut down for a sprinkle of interaction early. But again, we sort of just want to build up our elves, so we have 2 unscrumptious agents here. If we think we need more elves, we can sideboard these 2 in. We can sideboard in a Dwynen's Elite. This is mostly just to enable Archdruid. You'd probably sideboard this in if you sideboard in the 4th copy of Archdruid. This is not very important, but depending on how you sideboard, it could be. We also have a Dreamdew Entrancer in here. If they're playing like a more of a Voltron-centric, big, scary guy, not a lot of guy type of things, this just completely invalidates a guy, and it's really good to get this stuff back from the bin. And if you are sideboarding this in, maybe you're sideboarding in Overlord of the Baelmerk. Not a perfect deck for this, but a great card nonetheless. Maybe you just need a little bit more graveyard synergy there. And also, if you're sideboarded in those things, then you probably want a Badlands Revival. This is a very overlooked card. Super good. Getting 2 permanents back for the price of 1. 1 just goes straight to the bin. Because, yeah, your Virtue might get losted. It might just get duressed from your hand, for example. Maybe it fizzles when you cast the sorcery half, and then they get rid of that target or whatever. Then you can't cast the second half of it. So having that Badlands Revivals could be important. You could have your sideboard set up to be a little bit more reactive and responsive to what they're doing to you, but we have more creatures and stuff to enable our elves, and just have that critical mass of creatures and graveyard synergy. So again, this isn't a perfect deck or anything, but it's certainly fun. It's playing a lot of cards that I've been trying to play for a while now, and again, I don't have a huge amount of time at the moment. Eventually, very soon here, I will have more time to play the game, but I've been completely broke, financially suppressed, so I have like no rares and mythics. So to be honest with you, this is sort of a accommodation for not having rares and mythics to really spend. I actually spent my last mythic on this because I think this card is absolutely bonkers. It's really, really good. This card is really, really good. So yeah, fun little elf sub-theme, ramp sub-theme, graveyard sub-theme. Sultai deck. Pretty cool, man. And we're playing Glarb, so you know we're winning, right? You know we're winning, man. You know it. So thank you, again, for the gameplay. I hope you don't head out at this exact moment, because I do want to say that the gameplay is actually in 250 speed, so it's, I think, more watchable, because I don't have my face cam, because I just threw that on when I was playing at, like, 2 in the morning, and I couldn't really be super energetic or whatever, and I just sort of threw the recording on last second. I don't typically do that, by the way, so typically for my gameplay, there'll be me commentating, making educated decisions, but I should throw on like some music or whatever. If the music's annoying, maybe mute the video, but maybe check it out for just a little bit longer. That'd be huge. Leave a like. I love you so much. Sultai's fun. Can't wait for Tarkir Dragonstorm. I have a good amount of shorts talking about sleeper cards and some of the better cards that stood out to me. Maybe check out those shorts. And again, I just have tons of deck techs that are still standard legal, that are still good, that should inspire you a little bit if you haven't really seen those archetypes before. So thank you so much. I love you. See ya in the next one. Hopefully sub if you're new around here. And take care, okay, guys? Peace. guys.